Hey guys, I want to put a little video together for you to show you what goes into the making of your door, because it's a lot more than just bringing wood home and slapping it together, which I know you know. So anyways, this piece right here is going to be one of the horizontal rails for the door, and I'm going to kind of make a short video here, walk you through all the steps it takes to get this thing squared up, smoothed out, and ready for joinery, because straight from the lumber yard it's just not ready for joinery. It looks like it is, but it's not. It's got some damaged areas up here. You probably can't see it in the video, but it's all fuzzy and rough right here. It's not exactly square, it's not flat, it's not smooth. So there's a process that goes into that. So here we go. Okay, the first step is just to get one side flat and smooth, and we're going to use that as our reference face for the rest of the entire board and the entire project actually. So for this edge, I'll use my hand plane, and we'll go a few times until we get one nice clean continuous shaving. That way we know there's no bumps or dips or anything other like that, so it's nice and flat. So there we've got a pretty nice long continuous shaving there. So we know this side is now flat. All right, now that we've got one edge nice and flat and straight, we can actually measure off of it. That's what I've done. I've taken a measurement off of the big paper drawing that you saw while you were here, and I marked it, and it came out to 9¼ inches. And what I did was I actually marked it with a knife. And the reason you do that is you're able to get a much finer, much more precise line rather than a pencil line. So see if you can see it right here. Just a nice, straight, super fine knife line. And that's what we're gonna end up cutting, using to cut our board. So that'll be the next step, is ripping the board by hand with one of my hand saws. All right, so we got the board ripped down very closely to the size we want. I always leave just a touch, I don't know, that's like a 1/16 or less right there on the edge. And we'll plane this edge just like we did this one. We'll have two perfectly smooth sides, and then we'll be ready to get this thing down to a final thickness. So that'll be our next step. Okay, so here's our board. We've got both sides planed up, both edges. And at this point, the very most important thing to double check is to make sure that these edges are parallel. Because if they're not, it's gonna throw everything off. So I like to try to work to within about a 32nd of an inch. So I always double check myself. So let's check it out. We've got 9. And just in between 1/4 and 5/16. And we'll come up here, we'll check. Try to get that light out of the way here. 9, and in between 1/4 and 5/16. So if we're not within a 64th of an inch, we're as close as a human being can get. So I'm calling this board parallel, ready for the next step. Okay, now our edges are nice and straight and jointed, and we have a parallel board. What we want to do is start to take down that thickness, because this board is almost 2 inches thick, and what we want per your hardware instructions is 1 3/8 inches. So before we can do that, what we want to do is take just enough off this first surface to make it perfectly flat. So we'll make sure it doesn't have like a big hump in the middle, or it's not hollow or curved over the length of the entire board, and then that way we have a nice flat reference surface to take down the width off the opposite side. So that's what we'll do now. Okay, now that we got the one side of our board plain nice and flat, the last thing we got to do is make sure that there's no twist in it or wind, because it's possible for it to be flat but twisted along its length. And so that's what we've got. These sticks here are called winding sticks. The back one has got two lighter spots that you can see right here, and this front one has got, it's hard to see because of the lighting, but it's got a black strip that goes all the way across the top. And so what you do is you get down and you sight along the length, and you want to see the tops of those lighter colored bits of the far one go away at the exact same time. And that's how you know your board is not twisted. So an example of it being twisted might be if your board's a little like this. As you're coming down, you'd be able to see that that right side away from us is either too high or the left side near us is too high. But our board is perfectly flat. Okay, we're just about done with this board, getting it all ready for joinery. The last step now is to get this board down to that 1 3/8 final thickness. So what I've done is I've scored all the way around the board with a marking gauge, and you can see that line there. And this amount right here is how much we need to take off. So we're going to use a special plane called a scrub plane. It's been sharpened and adapted specifically to take off a lot of material at once. It won't leave a smooth surface, but that's not what we're looking for right now. We're looking for as much material gone as we can get it right off the bat, and we'll come back when we're real close, you know, that 1/16 of an inch or so again, and get that final smooth surface that we need. And then this board is ready to get set aside and ready for joinery. All right, here's the aftermath of what we'd call scrubbing that board. And we've got quite a mess here, but let's see if you can make out that real fine knife line again. And now, instead of having to take all that material off with a smoothing plane that just takes really thin shavings, now all we have to do is just remove that rough surface. Because right now you can see all the ripples and these little torn parts of grain. This is what I was talking about, what you might see on the underside of an old 18th century table or something like that, but we're gonna smooth it up. All right, it's probably hard to tell from the video that this board doesn't look that different than maybe when it started, but I can assure you it is. What we have now is a board that's 1 3/8 all the way around. It's perfectly flat, perfectly parallel to within a 32nd of an inch, which we checked with our tape measure. Each side is exactly 90 degrees, which we checked with a square. So this board is ready to go, ready to get grooves cut into it, tenons cut onto it, and start getting fit into the longer rails that we have. And one of the things we do here is, it's probably backwards for you, but you've got a cursive F, and the tail end of it goes down to this little arrow. And what that means is that for the rest of this project, until your door is completely done, every measurement that has to do with this board is going to come off of these two sides in this corner, and that will ensure that everything is perfectly consistent. So we've worked to within, like I said, a 32nd of an inch. We've taken shavings down that are close to 1,000th of an inch off, and that's the degree to which we're working here. So I'm not knocking anybody that would use machines to do that. You could do all this with various different machines. I don't have them, and to be honest with you, I think that even after you were to use you know, whatever jointers and planers and stuff, at some point you'd still have to come back and do some of this by hand, because you just can't get this kind of finish with a machine. So I'll send you another update. It'll be getting the joinery cut in here and putting mortise and tenon together, and hopefully we can get this frame together by the end of this week. See how it goes. Thanks.